It's Thursday, 26th of April 2023, and you're watching AIM on Air, where specialising in connecting companies with its shareholders is what we do best. Hello and welcome back to AIM on Air. My name's Liam, and today I'm pleased to be hosting Shaun Day from Greatland Gold. Welcome to the show, Shaun.
Hi, Liam. Thanks very much for having me on the program again, and how are you?
Very well, thank you. Excited to talk to you today. We've got lots of questions to get through. For those that haven't been here before, Greatland is a leading mining and development company focused on precious and base metals. They are developing the world-class Havieron gold copper deposit in the Paterson region of Western Australia while delivering multi-project exploration upside in a low-risk jurisdiction. Shaun, for our icebreaker today, I wondered, please, if you could tell me about your favourite holiday destination and why.
I think that would have to be Rottnest Island off the coast of Perth here in Western Australia. Small island, most famous for the quokka, which is a small marsupial, kind of small kangaroo type creature, think of it. But very much a beach holiday. I've been going there most of my life since a kid, across on a boat. And it is just a very relaxing place, no cars. It's a very, it's a nice way to get away without having a huge journey. Great part of the world.
Fantastic. It only seems like a few weeks ago that we were sat in the studio talking about Q4. And as I said in my pre-show notes, that I didn't think really much was going to happen. But we've quite a lot of stuff to get through today. First, let's touch on the latest updates from Havieron and talk about the news that was released on RNS this morning. First of all, how is the decline development going?
Yeah, look, really well. Look, we're over 1,600 metres of the main ramp development down to the ore body, and all up development has also gone through 2,000. That includes all the additional ancillary development such as overtaking bays and stockpile bays. But what I think is most insightful about this is the acceleration of the progress. Another, record quarter, and as you continue to accelerate, we get down to the bottom of that ore body, still scheduled for March 2024, but we are running ahead of schedule. We haven't changed schedule, but it's nice to have that additional flexibility up our sleeve, and if we can deliver early, that would be great in due course. But no development is linear, but it's nice to be ahead of time. And again, just continuing to see that acceleration as we go through and get into more and more competent ground.
Brilliant. 6 new drills reported this time around. Are you still intercepting high grade gold and copper mineralisation?
Yeah, look, we are. Look, it was nice to see a few new holes into that South-East Crescent, and it just reminds us the quality of that part of the ore body. So that was really good. 54 meters at 8.5. Gold plus I think it was 0.3 copper is just a reminder of the quality of that South-East Crescent. But what was also really nice to see is some of those high grade intercepts outside of the South-East Crescent. Particularly in that eastern breccia where you had a 5 gram hit plus copper, but also that was on the northern limit of that eastern breccia. So again, nice to see high grade, but also nice to see those areas continuing to expand. We don't have the density of the drill holes on those kind of new areas, but again, it just opens up additional area or zonations of mineralization. So I think 2 real positives out of that, both the grade, but also the continuing to grow the expanse of the ore body.
Thank you. Last week, you released an RNS with the Ruder results, which contained a lovely surprise of 18.25 metres at 22 grams per tonne. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, the Ruder was a really interesting hit, which I think ended up becoming my quote, actually, so I've said it again. But it is a deep intercept, but very high grade. The drill was in mineralization when it came to when it was finished. which is also interesting. But I think at that depth, what's most interesting is about, what have we tagged? Have we just glanced the edge of something and then that runs off towards surface? I think would be extremely interesting. So that's where we're going to do some downhole EM and try to understand, what we can learn from that geophysics. My understanding is it's in a pyrrhotite, which is a conductive host rock. So the EM should be able to give us a direction of where that's heading and identify a target. The other really neat thing about that, I think a great job by the technical team, but about being able to vector in on these geophysical targets. So it's nice when you expect to have something and that you've done the interpretation work to then hit mineralization. Given that area is under 400 or 500 meters of cover, we knew we had about a plus 250 meter margin of error on that. Hence, there's every opportunity that this can be a glancing blow. But it's nice to see that geophysical model coming together. We've also got a couple of interesting intercepts last year in Scallywag, which again were mineralized intercepts on the edge of geophysical anomalies. One being the RC kind of collar before we do the diamond drill into the anomaly. The other one perhaps being on the edge of something. So with A35 and Pearl respectively. So the geophysical model is, I think they're doing a good job, and I think that just increases our probability for success. So I think with Rudel, that's one of my really interesting takeaways there is just the work that team is doing from a technical basis.
Thank you. I'm going to run off script now. It's dangerous. So in my interpretation of how Greatland does its exploration is the one hole that you've done this time around is, I would expect it more to be a let's just look, see what's going on, and then your next holes are based on what you've done today. So because it was a very steep hole, wasn't it? This one is normally you sort of go at a 60-degree angle, but this one's at, I think it was more like 80. So it kind of says to me you were.
Yeah, I think even a little bit steeper than 80 degrees on that one. So yes, you're right to describe that as a steep hole. Look, we're very technically driven. We could accelerate exploration by going and bursting, a dozen holes into a geophysical target. But of course, the expenditures associated with that are very high.
Yeah.
So what we prefer to do is to do the work, try to do as much work as we can around geophysics and other techniques to plan that hole. Drill a hole, compare it to our expectations, then recalibrate. You understand the stratigraphy. It allows you to do downhole EM and other more new additional geophysical targeting, and then we go back and recalibrate. Firstly, do we think we need to go back and drill, or and if so, where? And what, again, in a technical sense, what we like to do is before we walk away from an anomaly is try to think that we've explained it. And that can be explained with mineralization like a Havieron, or it can be explained for some other reason. But we prefer to walk away from something once we've understood it, which typically doesn't need a huge number of drill holes, but it needs a lot of thought and planning and a drill hole in the right spot.
That makes sense. And am I right in saying that, technically speaking, this was a free hole because it was funded by the government?
Yeah, look, we did access the exploration incentive scheme, the WA government EIS funding. I'm sure there would have been some dual funding there, but that was a meaningful amount of funding towards that hole. It was a lovely bullseye target, so we did want to test it. It's a great support from the government, which we're very grateful for. And we have learned something. If we can go back and identify a target, who knows? We may create a huge amount of value both for our shareholders and the state. So yeah, look, it did give us an additional incentive, or at least a lower cost barrier to want to undertake that hole, and then half the core goes and sits in the state library, core library. So it's a good program that certainly encouraged us to pursue that Rudel target. And again, I think this is all part of the team, the technical team, being able to successfully apply for that funding as a credit to them. And again, I think we had a number of notes from other participants in the Paterson just congratulating us on the technical work of that identification. So we're pleased, and again, I think it enhances our reputation as a technical team in that Paterson and more broadly for undercover exploration. And I think that ultimately creates opportunity for us as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Back on script. The Scallywag results from 2022 drill campaign were released early March, as you've already touched on, and that also had some exciting numbers. And whilst not as impressive as Rudel, the results were very encouraging. I seem to recall you were quite animated during the interview. Which excites you more, A35 or Pearl?
Well, I think you've got to enjoy what you do, and you've got to have a certain cup half full optimism with exploration. So yeah, look, I think for me the A35 is the slightly more exciting one, just because we did the pre-collar without real expectation that we would hit mineralization. We've encountered a little bit of mineralization, just in that transition zone before we stopped the RC. So it's nice to be targeting the hole exactly where we intended to be, to hit that mineralization and be right above the target. It's an exciting prospect. I do think some of the geos like Pearl, and one of the really interesting things on Pearl is we lost, as you sometimes do, a little bit of the core, which was probably the most interesting part of that drill hole. So that does encourage us a little bit to drill that anomaly again and see, hopefully capture that core and understand a little bit through that zone that we're particularly interested in. But for me, if I had to rank them, it's A35 followed by Pearl, but they're a little bit like being asked which of your children you love the most. It's they're all good.
I understand. Just a follow up. Would you consider holding a competition to rename A35?
Look, I think I'd certainly consider it. I wouldn't mind checking with the team, and I don't want it to become Bodie McBoatface, but so we'll have to be careful with the UK audience. But we could look into that.
Thank you. Jury also delivered with results at Black Hills, with drills showing hints of gold and bismuth being intersected. Are you starting to understand the picture at Black Hills now?
Yeah, look, again, I think in a number of our announcements, we've talked about bismuth being an important pathfinder element. You see bismuth present in Telfer, you see it present in Havieron. So I do think, we like and indeed we target those kind of pathfinder elements. So when we come across that, it is encouraging, particularly when associated with also some mineralization as well. So again, it's all part of solving the puzzle. And so with the Black Hills, we do feel that's encouraging signs.
You have also added to the already strong team at Greatland, with Jeremy Minart and Simon Tyrrell coming on board. Have they settled into the team now?
Yeah, they have. Look, I think just Simon's, I've actually worked with before. He's also out of Northern Star, an incredible operator. I think he brings a lot of, additional technical skills to the team. And I think it also, with our interaction with Newcrest, again, it just adds to our capability and credibility to engage with our JV partner. So, I think there's benefit there is multifactorial. And then Jeremy, and remember, we also brought across a couple of his colleagues as well. and that's really given us a little bit more capacity, just organisational capacity around everything from presentations to announcements to processing information. We might touch on, looking at in an Australian listing, but it does give us the capacity to pursue those elements while still maintaining the cadence of activity we do around Havieron and others. So yeah, it's been welcome additions to the team.
Brilliant. Thank you. My next batch of questions are more of clarifications, I guess, but I suspect we'll come back to the same answer, maybe cannot be answered. So I must urge listeners to remember that some of these are forward-looking and can only be considered speculative at this time. So first up, we touch on this nearly every time, the application to the Environmental Protection Authority. We've been waiting since December for an update, and you suggested it was coming, but there's still no news on it. Have you got an update for us?
Look, I'm always cautious to give timetables when it comes to interactions with, government agencies. They do a really good job, but they're often have a high workload demand. But we understand that's progressed significantly and is close to publication. So, I continue to be, I think there'll be an update soon, but I'm very cautious to put a date or time on that, other than to say we still think it's within the timetable of our expectations, and we continue to, the joint venture team continues to engage with the EPA and make progress. And, they're a good organisation to deal with, albeit we respect that they've got, multiple calls on their time.
No, I understand. Thank you. The December town hall, you suggested the next 6-9 months would be transformational for our company. Is this still the case? And there's a follow-up. How well are we progressing against your own timelines and targets?
Yeah, look, I think what we've talked about is over the last 12 months getting the foundations of the company in good standing. We updated the board, the management team. We've navigated that 5% process. We brought in the debt commitment with the banks and brought in some equity associated with that. I think the other thing we'd like to do is set the platform so we also have access to ASX or Australian mandated institutional investors. I see that as an additional pool of capital who invest in Australian copper gold mines or gold copper mines, and understand this asset well, because chances are a lot of them are already investors in Newcrest. So I see the period up till June, July this year as getting the platform complete, and then we'd like that to be transformational beyond that. And I feel that we have opportunities. I feel we're interested in a lot of opportunities, and the company has done a lot to position itself as a credible counterparty.
Okay, let's talk about the ASX listing for the moment while we're there. Are we still on track to joining Q3, which I think we are, because you just said that? And are you able to talk to the next steps of the company and what shareholders can expect, say, through to December?
Yeah, look, so yes, look, we've publicly said we have an intention to ASX list. Importantly, that's a cross listing, so we continue to trade shares on the London Stock Exchange AIM market, and that is where our centre of gravity remains and where our shares trade with liquidity. So but that's an important, and yes, I believe we're working and on track for that Q3. Although there's a huge number of regulatory processes to walk through as part of that. But again, I think we have the resources to navigate. And in terms of the back half of the year, again, once we have that platform in place, I think we continue to be laser focused on the Havieron development. We continue to want to invest in the drill bit. we continue to want to advance opportunities to increase our footprint and build on that technical team and the credibility of that team to upgrade the portfolio. And of course, we're also interested in building and becoming a multi-asset, multi-billion-dollar platform, which I think I've communicated previously is our kind of medium to long-term goal.
Yeah, and that's the part that excites me as a shareholder. That's the part that excites me. It'd be rude of me not to ask the next question, and I do say it slightly laughing. I got to ask it to appease the audience. A few months back, Luca Giacovazzi, if I said that right, was asked in an interview about buying Telfer and taking back ownership of Havieron to 100%. His answer was simply to ask Shaun. So, as delicate as a question it is, if you happen to be interested in purchasing an old tier 1 mine with a 6.5 million ounce ore body down the road attached to it, what would be your process to go about the acquisition?
Yeah, we're actively interested in growth opportunities. I think, again, taking people back to those 3 pillars of our strategy: deliver an expanded Havieron, invest in the drill bit, and look at opportunities for additional growth. Yeah, I don't think we can get drawn into that specific or other specific opportunities, but clearly we have a deep interest in pursuing that part of our growth strategy, and there is a direct interest there, and perhaps made all the more relevant because Newmont is in has progressed with a seemingly an agreed takeover bid, which is subject to a due diligence process now with Newcrest. So Newcrest is in play. With it, you could argue that Telfer, Havieron, and indeed Greatland itself is in play as well. So I think that does create an interesting environment in which we look at these kind of growth opportunities.
Thank you. I don't even know if you can answer this one, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Peter has asked me if I can ask you if any takeover offers have been received.
Yeah, if a proposal was received, the company would evaluate it, and if compelling value for shareholders, it would be put to shareholders. But we don't kind of comment on these things as a matter of course, because otherwise you can set an expectation that you'll always comment on these things.
No, that's fair enough, and thank you for clarifying. When we this could fall under the same category, actually, thinking out loud. I'll let you say that though. When we look at future growth, there's so many ideas, and as a shareholder's dream for speculation, something we've picked up on a few times is that you consider Greatland to be a partner of choice. Are you able to elaborate what that means for you?
Well, I think that means that we want to be viewed by other participants in the Paterson or elsewhere as a partner of choice. And I mean that as both technically strong. I think having a strategic partner in Wailu, who we greatly respect, and you referenced Luca earlier, I think is hugely advantageous for us. And also, I think we like to think we're engaging with other groups in a constructive way. So I think what I mean there is that when opportunities do arise, rather than being seen as a minor participant, perhaps we're now seen as a technically strong and financially capable participant, which opens a lot of additional doors. Additionally, having the board that we do and indeed the management, I think, again, gives us a connectivity through the sector that we otherwise may not have had. So I think that creates opportunities for us, be that in exploration opportunities or be that in operating mine opportunities. I think it's something that we are really interested in pursuing and would like to continue to upgrade the portfolio. We love the existing portfolio, but adding equally good or better assets to that portfolio is, the more the better.
Absolutely. And the last part, just the standard questions that must fill your inbox on a daily basis. Rather than me ask 3 individual questions, I should just mention them, allow you to deduce the question, and then you can answer as you feel appropriate. So feasibility study, decision to mine, and a updated MRE.
Yes. Okay. So let me answer that in reverse order. So the updated MRE, we do. I think we've discussed this openly with shareholders in the past that although in March 2022 we came out and independently released an updated resource, we think there were specific elements to the arbitration or around the value of Havieron that created a compelling environment for Greatland to see it in our own interest to update that resource independently. I think in this case, because of the broader environment, and also we think there's some technical legitimacy to understanding further the some of those Eastern Brescia and other zonations before we put a resource around them. We think the process that we're embarking on with Newcrest around that is fair and sensible. So we expect to update that resource with the rest of the universe of Newcrest assets in August 2023. So that work is ongoing, and that continues to be my expectation. Turning to the definitive feasibility study, which might have been your first element, that continues to be something that Greatland would like at the earliest point. Obviously, the Newcrest originally signalled that would be available in the December quarter of 2022. I think they did the same for Red Chris. Neither Red Chris or Havieron have been delivered to the market to date. I don't think the Havieron one is imminent, and I could only speculate if asked to draw on what's happening with Red Chris, but I think we do have pretty good visibility, and for obvious reasons, I think Newcrest is distracted around that Newmont engagement and the Newmont due diligence on Newcrest. So I even though it would be lovely to say that the JV will push that out by June, I suspect events have overtaken such that will be a document kind of pushed out from there. But right now, I think the focus of Newcrest is understandably going to be the takeover by Newmont, and then I guess we kind of reset the parameters again. Then typically the way the JVA was done, to the third part of your question, is the decision to mine is made shortly after delivery of that feasibility study. The parties can, decide collectively that they want to do that in a different sequence, but as we presently stand here, Greatland would feel strongly that feasibility study needs to be delivered for that decision, and that decision needs to be made prior to the start of mining. And I think also in the JVA, there's a reference to an April 2023 sunset date. So that puts a long stop date on it, but one would like to see that on the back of this takeover process with Newmont.
Thank you, Shaun, and thank you for being a guest on our show. Have you any last words for your shareholders today?
No, look, other than thank you to you, Liam, for taking the time to catch up. I think this is a great format, and I'm sure a lot of people appreciate you taking the time to do this. And of course, for the shareholders, really appreciate the support. There's a lot going on right now. So hopefully with this quarterly out, and some more updates to come as we kind of continue to think about how we can bring a cross listing on to complement the existing and ongoing London listing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sadly, this is the end of the webcast, ladies and gents. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact us on Twitter with the addresses on the screen now. And before you close this page, I'd be grateful of any thumbs ups. Until next time, my name is Liam, and you've been watching AIM on Air, where the specialising in connecting companies with its shareholders is what we do best. Thank you.